Within the world of hip-hop, there's something called a posse cut that can be really special. Generally, you can think of it as when a bunch of rappers are on a track together, and within this video, I'm gonna talk about some of the characteristics that can make or break these songs. When you have multiple MCs that might not feature with one another very often, all flowing over the same beat, it's this unique moment that can feel like the musical equivalent of an all-star game, where you can see who has chemistry together, you can very directly compare who had the best verse, and so on. Some of the classics of this category are Scenario by A Tribe Called Quest, featuring leaders of the new school. There's Craig Mack's Flava in Your Ear remix that saw Rampage, LL Cool J, Busta Rhymes, Diddy, and the Notorious B.I.G. Wu-Tang entries like Fourth Chamber and Triumph, and then later, something like UGK combining with Outkast for International Players Anthem is a perfect example of a posse cut living up to its full potential. But as the title of this video might suggest, what about modern day versions of this rap template? What's the best posse cut of this generation? 2008 felt like a good cutoff for me personally, so this is the general range that we're going to be talking about. The criteria of the songs I'm going to bring up is as follows. We need a minimum of 4 different people spitting full rap verses, so that's going to exclude something like Big Sean, Jay Electronica, and Kendrick Lamar's Control, and also Monster by Kanye only has 3 full rap verses, and then that weird little half intro thing from Rick Ross. And finally, this rule is very subjective, but I only want to discuss more mainstream-leaning, slightly less underground posse cuts. So yes, Vice City by J-Rock, The Last Huzzah, That Part, Black Hippie Remix, Pinata, and a lot of Good Friday tracks like Christian Dior Denim Flow are fantastic, but our list follows a slightly more specific vibe. That leaves me with 8 posse cuts that came to mind for everybody in the comments to rank. I'm just gonna give my thoughts on each one, and let's see what happens. Beginning with T.I. and Jay-Z's Swagga Like Us featuring Kanye West and Lil Wayne, I don't think this one made the impact that it was supposed to. First off, I have mixed opinions about this beat from Ye. Part of me wants to like how gimmicky it is with the MIA vocals, but as a whole, it feels like he's dumbing down a brilliant song in a way that's tacky. Kanye delivers some infamously goofy lyrics with the 100,000 trillion bit. Jay-Z talks about how much he hates skinny jeans, and then he starts singing at one point. Wayne's verse gets clouded by some very cheap sounding auto-tune, and then T.I.'s verse isn't bad, but again, that proves the point that I'm getting at. Swagga Like Us isn't a terrible, horrible song, but when you get legends like this together, people have high expectations, which this did not live up to. Next up, a quintessential pump-up song for its era. It is insane to think that Forever by Drake, Kanye West, Lil Wayne, and Eminem exists. This is Drake being welcomed to the game by superstars before he even dropped his debut album, teaming up with Kanye before Twisted Fantasy, No Ceilings Lil Wayne after the Carter 3, and Eminem making a grand return to rap, coming back from rehab. With the air horns on the beat from Boy Wonder and Drake opening with this underdog chorus about wanting this type of success forever, this thing was made to be played in sports commercials and through loudspeakers at games, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but let's call it what it is. Drake's verse begins with the iconic last name ever, first name greatest, like a sprained ankle boy, I ain't nothing to play with. Kanye's lyrics are kind of strange in that we go from silly punchlines to very sincere sentiments about the concept of this song. There are these creepy little pianos during Wayne's verse that I like a lot, and then his roller coaster theme park analogy has always stood out to me, and Eminem's comeback here is pretty flawless. I don't know if we'll get a posse cut of this magnitude ever again, and I think that it does exactly what it set out to do. Each artist brought their talent to the table, but I don't think it's quite as interesting musically as others that we'll talk about. So Appalled by Kanye West was a Good Friday song that actually made it onto Twisted Fantasy, and it features Jay-Z, Pusha T, Sci-Hi the Prince, and non-rapping verses from Swizz Beatz and the RZA. The production here from No ID and Ye isn't talked about enough in my opinion. It has the maximalist aesthetic to match the themes of the album, and the focus is so much on the bars here that people forget how good this deep, brooding instrumental is. Especially compared to the two that we've mentioned so far, So Appalled feels less like a very intentional Posse cut where these big names are gonna shine, and more of a lengthy, abstract hip-hop song that, again, blends in well with its surroundings on Twisted Fantasy. From my perspective, the spectacle isn't who's on the song, it's what's within the song. There's way more to it than just the names on paper. My favorite moments are when Jay-Z takes on this wise godfather role, referencing the "live long enough to see yourself become a villain" line in The Dark Knight, which he segues into asking, would you rather be underpaid or overrated? And then the end of Pusha T's verse with, I speak the gospel, hostile, Tony doing time for what he did to Nostrils, makes me do a stank face every time. Odd Future's Oldie is by far the longest track on my list at a whopping 10 minutes and 36 seconds, but it felt too significant to leave out of this conversation. In a way, this rebellious structure of giving everybody in the group a verse, including people that don't even rap, I think this song succeeding was a sign that weirdos and independent musicians were on their way to the forefront. The pros of this are also its cons in that it's supposed to be fun. In the same way that something like Forever was made to be played at basketball games, this was meant to be an entertaining look at how far Odd Future had come up until that point. So I'm not gonna sit here and critique Left Brain for not being on the same level as Earl and Tyler. With that being said, it's so cool to run the gamut of Jasper doing Jasper things to a young Frank Ocean spitting a verse that would be reposted on Twitter every week until the end of time, and yes, Earl proving to be one of the best technical rappers in the game, and Tyler cementing his spot as one of the more influential creators of this time. I don't really expect Oldie to be many people's #1 ranked Posse cut in the comments, but it's original, the music video is beloved, and it's always a nice stroll down memory lane. One of the biggest hits and highest quality songs of 2012, Mercy by Kanye West, Big Sean, Pusha T, and 2 Chainz, was next level. With a southern trap sound and dancehall influences, this eerie banger with a catchy hook was everywhere. Apart from its monumental beat, what I find so intriguing about Mercy is how it keeps building from start to finish. We begin with the lesser talented of the bunch, delivering lines that are kinda funny, kinda corny. Pusha T does what he always does, the man never puts out a bad verse, and then there's this perfect momentum switch as the bridge hits and Kanye starts rapping, with plenty of lines that could make it into the braggadocious Hall of Fame, and the instrumental pulsating like something major is about to happen. Kanye sets up 2 Chainz for a musical alley-oop like no other. While he had been in the game for a bit, putting out mixtape after mixtape, this verse was 2 Chainz bursting into the mainstream and really becoming a star. We get amazing punchline rap in full effect with some of the most memorable quotables of the 21st century. Mercy has a solid balance between posse cut star power and actually being a very replayable hit, and I'm curious to see where it lands on your rankings. Next up, we have A$AP Rocky with One Train, and just to remind you, F***ing Problems was close to qualifying, but even though there are 4 rappers on that song, 2 Chainz doesn't actually have a rapping verse. So, I think this one is the strangest outlier of the video. Dropped in 2013, it pays homage to 90s guys like Big L and Wu-Tang by throwing a ton of MCs on a grimy, hit boy beat with zero hook whatsoever. Just different personalities and bar after bar. This eclectic track touches on each corner of the rap world at the time, with Rocky's confident swagger, Kendrick Lamar's technical prowess, the raw storytelling of Joey Badass, Yellow Wolf's hyper energy, the unmatched, unhinged references of Danny Brown, Action Bronson's distinct imagery, and the dominant hunger of Big Krit. This song should not work as well as it does. It's this bizarre sampler of all these contrasting voices, but they really do work well together. I think Joey and Big Krit are both strong contenders for going the hardest on this, but my personal favorite is Danny in all of his glorious absurdity. Pussy smell like a penguin. Wouldn't hit that shit with my worst enemies. Bitch, when I say this, I mean this. Oh, I'm the meanest. Dick so big it's like from Earth to Venus. That is remarkable. And finally, Really Dope by that man Danny Brown featuring Ab-Soul, Kendrick Lamar, and Earl Sweatshirt is without a doubt the Galaxy Brain option here. It's the most experimental, the lyricism is on a whole nother level, but I have no problem admitting that this isn't gonna be for everyone. The creepy instrumental from Black Milk will be enough to throw some people off. Danny is definitely the least family-friendly mainstream host out of anyone on this list, and then in many ways, Kendrick is the only name here that would excite general audiences. I'm saying this not because I think it, I would personally call this the best song on the list, but we are judging Posse cuts against other Posse cuts. So I think it's reasonable to mention that Posse cuts are often so special because of how big and flashy they are to people, and Really Dope might be more niche. I don't know. Regardless, listen to Earl finish this song off for some of the best rapping across all of the 2010s. It's a verse to remember. So after my very subjective little roundup of the major Posse cuts of this generation, what's your ranking of them and which is number one? Is it Swagga Like Us, Forever, So Appalled, Oldie, Mercy, One Train, or Really Dope? Let me know down in the comments, and thanks for watching. Hey, thank you for watching that video. If you want to support the channel, feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. You can follow me on social media at RenshawHS. You can buy my merch, support my Patreon, and thank you again. I'll see you soon.